Alright, in this presentation we're going to discuss circles, which is our last two-dimensional figure that we're going to look at in terms of area and what we call circumference. So, circle is a two-dimensional figure with all points the same distance from a fixed point that we call the center. We have two things that we're going to look at. We have a radius. This is the distance from the center to any point on the circle, and we use the letter R to denote the radius. We also have something called the diameter, and the diameter is the distance across the circle passing through the center. We have a relationship between radius and diameter. Diameter is equal to 2 times the radius, and the radius is equal to the diameter divided by 2. Now, in the last presentations we talked about something called perimeter, and we have something similar in a radius, in a circle, but we call it a circumference. The circumference is the distance around the outside of the circle. Just like with perimeter, the units for circumference are going to be regular units. So instead of adding up all the sides, we have two formulas. We have circumference equals 2 times pi times r, or we can use circumference equals pi times d. The other thing that we're going to look at is area. Remember that the units for area, even if it is a circle, are going to be squared units. Our formula is A equals pi r squared. And one thing to note about area is we do not have a formula for area in terms of the diameter. So if you are given the diameter, the first step is to calculate the radius by dividing by 2. The last thing we need is what is pi. Pi, in this course, we are going to use the approximate value of pi, which is 3.14. Once you leave this class, you should use the pi key on your calculator for a more accurate answer. Okay, in these first examples, we just want to talk about the relationship between diameter and radius. So in our first example, one thing to note is that we have a line inside our circle. It does not extend all the way across, and so this is our radius. Our radius is 9 centimeters. We want to calculate the diameter. So remember that the diameter is equal to 2 times the radius, or 2 times 9. So we get the diameter is equal to 18 centimeters. The diameter is the distance across the circle, so it's going to be regular units. In our second example, we have the line extends all the way across the circle. So this is a diameter. We have our diameter is equal to 17 meters. We want to find the radius. So we're going to divide 17 by 2. And if we divide 17 by 2, we get 8.5. This is the distance from the center to the outside of the circle. Since it is a distance, we're going to have regular units. So we get our radius is equal to 8.5 meters. Okay, now that we have looked at our relationship between radius and diameter, let's get into the meat of the section. We're going to talk about calculating the circumference and area for the circles. So if we look at the first circle, Again, I'm going to go ahead and start with my diameters and my radius so that I know what we're plugging in. 38 meters. Since this is all the way across the circle, I know that my diameter is 38. We want to find our radius, so we're going to divide 38 by 2, and we get R is equal to 19 meters. Okay, let's start with circumference. So circumference, it doesn't matter which formula you use. I'm going to use pi times d on this one. If we go ahead and plug in, we get pi is equal to 3.14, and we have d is 38. Using a calculator, I'm going to go ahead and multiply these two numbers together, and we get 119.32. Since it is a distance around the circle, we're going to keep regular units, so it's going to be 119.32 meters. That is our circumference, so now let's go ahead and calculate our area. Our formula for area is pi r squared. This one, we do need our r value that we went ahead and calculated. Remember that there is no formula for area in terms of diameter. So we're going to bring in the 19 that we found earlier. So if we plug in, we get 3.14 times 19 squared, or if you want, you can multiply 19 times 19. Okay, if we go ahead and calculate, I'm going to use a calculator again, just to speed this along. I get 1,133.54, and my meters are going to be squared since we are talking area. Alright, so that takes care of the first example. The second example, we have 11.5 centimeters. This is my radius. You can calculate the diameter if you want, but we do have a formula for both circumference and area in terms of r. So I'm going to go ahead and use that formula instead. So my formula for circumference is 2 pi r. If we plug in, we get 2 times 3.14 times 11.5. If we go ahead and multiply this out, I get 72.22. We include our units, which is centimeters. All right, let's go ahead and look at area. We have A equals pi r squared, so if we plug in, we get A equals 3.14 times 11.5 squared, or 11.5 times 11.5. If we go ahead and multiply that out, we get 415.265 centimeters. And since this is an area, it's going to be centimeters squared. So those are the two types of problems that you're going to see when we talk about circumference and area. And the important thing is to note whether you are given a diameter or a radius to begin with. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at an application problem. We have a circular rug is 8 feet in diameter. Part A, we want the cost of fringe for the edge is $2.25 per foot. What will the cost to add fringe be to the rug? So the first question we want to ask is this a circumference or is this an area problem? So some keywords, this is a circumference problem. Notice that we are adding to the edge. We are just adding to the outside of the rug. Also note that this is $2.25 per regular foot. So these are going to be the things that tell us this is circumference. So for circumference, note that we have this is 8 feet in diameter. So I'm going to go ahead and use pi times d. If we plug in, we get 3.14 times 8. I get my circumference is 25.12 feet. Now it's just my circumference. We still need to figure out the cost. So to find our cost, we're going to multiply 2.25 times my circumference and we get $56.52. Okay, for part B, we have find the cost of covering the underside of the rug with a non-slip rubber backing if the rubber backing costs $1.50 per square foot. So note here some keywords. We have covering. We also have per square foot, which tells me this is going to be an area problem. So my area is pi r squared. Before I begin, remember that my diameter is 8 feet. What will that make my radius? In order to find the radius, we're going to divide by 2. We get 8 divided by 2 is 4. And so this is the number that we want to plug into our formula. So we get A equals 3.14 times 4 times 4. If we go ahead and multiply this out, we get A equals 50.24 feet squared. And now to determine my cost, I want to multiply my 1.50 times my area and we get $75.36. Alright, so that takes care of our circle. In the next presentation, we're going to talk about three-dimensional figures. So take a break, and I will see you again shortly.